Hello, everyone, and welcome to OD and Chill episode 132. I'm joined today by Carina Micheal from APG Co. We're going to be talking about all things about APG Co, her background, the build that we've done on commerce tools together, and we're going to be listening out for your questions in the channel as well. We're live across LinkedIn. So get your questions in. I know there's a lot of people out there who've got questions that want to ask some things about what it's like to do a composable build, what it's like to, work with Overdose, what it's like to, be someone in this industry. So get your questions in. Without sort of going out further, I'll introduce Carina and get her to give us a bit of spiel about APG and about her background as well.
Cool. Thanks, Sam. Thank you for having me. I'm Carina Micheal. I'm the Group Head of Technology at APG Co. We're a brand assembly of three very proud Australian heritage brands, Sportscraft, SABA and JAG. We're a fashion apparel retailer. We make and sell clothes, which I hope you all know of us and have seen us around in your malls and on the internet as well. So recently we did a huge transformation project where we basically took a fresh look at our ecom tech stack and decided to gut it and build it from the top back down to the bottom, for bottom up, I should say. We partnered with Overdose to do that project, and it was a good one. It was nice and meaty. It took us a little bit of time, but we're on the other side now, and it's working out actually really well for us at the moment.
Excellent.
So yeah.
So why don't you tell the people out there in the audience a little bit about yourself and your background as well?
Yeah, I wish I would have an exciting backstory, but I used to be an IT consultant. So I started off as I did IT at UTS. I did the IT co-op there and started as a grad at IBM, as most grads do, and then spent my time building custom web applications for big, lofty government agencies, which was very sexy stuff. Lots of form processing, lots of workflow management. Yeah, Canberra's the place to be. And then after that, my practice started to do some work in e-commerce space with our newly acquired WebSphere e-commerce product. And that was actually where I suddenly realized it was the marriage of my two most favorite loves, which was the internet and shopping. So worked with a lot of retailers doing some e-commerce platforms there, some big retailers in Australia, Myer, David Jones, Coles. Got to work abroad a little bit with Ralph Lauren, which was really exciting. Then after a few years of doing that, decided probably took a bit of a break, spent a season in Whistler snowboarding, which was very exciting, traveling and all that good stuff as you do. And then coming back and deciding to actually continue on that industry, but actually working in-house. So I found a wonderful opportunity at APG Co to really build out their e-commerce offering. And that was kind of at a time in Australia where a lot of retailers, traditionally brick and mortar retailers, were starting to really invest heavily in their e-commerce services and offerings to the general people. So yeah, and I've been there ever since, just tweaking, tuning, making it better than ever for our customers.
Perfect. You mentioned working overseas with Ralph Lauren. That was in Southeast Asia, is that right?
That was in Hong Kong. Yeah, so very interesting stuff. It was basically a rebuild of their APAC regional site at the time. So lots of challenges there with multi-language, just the common, even capturing names was interesting because sometimes you'd capture names differently in Korea as you would in Japan or Hong Kong. So yeah, very interesting project, and a lot of influence from their US head office as well. But a very, very strong brand, and they're very specific about how they like to present themselves.
Yeah. Was there anything, that branding sort of experience and understanding what it's like to really try and represent a brand online would have been pay dividends today now working with APG Co. But then is there other learnings from working sort of, in another region to actually sort of bring back to Australia? Or is there something about the way that they do things that's sort of different to how we do things here?
I think the incredible amount of services that are available in a place like Japan. So when you're talking about delivery services, here in Australia, we have Australia Post, who we love. And the services are quite limited here, and only now with recent sort of providers are starting to sort of branch out a little bit more. But when I was working on the Japan site, they had a whole host of services for delivery options for customers, and customers actually expect that in the region because they're so used to it. So you're talking about next day, same day, weekend, timed, leave at a parcel locker, leave under my doormat, leave, wherever, drop it off at the grocery store down the corner, at specific times. So that was actually really, I found fascinating, because just being able to provide those services on the regular and as a norm was a really important thing for that market. So that was something that really kind of opened my eyes a little bit. The other part was planning UAT for a Japanese site with testers that may or may not have spoken Japanese. Was interesting. Yes, so I wasn't really able to contribute to that because I don't speak Japanese or read it. But yeah, there's a lot of different challenges and just the technical ones of actually supporting the different characters, the Chinese characters between the Japanese characters, and making sure you got the right fonts for that. So some real tricky nuances there.
Yeah, and I assume that like even your font selection is going to be different because you still want to represent the brand in a particular way, but then also there has to be legible within that character type as well. So it must be interesting different kinds of challenges.
Absolutely, yeah. And it was a fair while ago. I don't want to say how long ago, but a fair while ago where devices weren't as rich as they were today. No, very young. Yeah.
And then from working basically on a vendor side, so working with a partner with IBM, and then implementing WebSphere for customers, and then going into the brand side. What's been the difference in that kind of experience? Is it sort of more focused around a long-term vision of the actual platform? Are you deeper into the brand and what they're trying to deliver?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing that I would say about working in-house is that everything that we build is a living, breathing thing. So as a consultant, or even as an agency, like sometimes you do projects, you roll them out, you make sure they're okay, and then you kind of, say job done and sort of walk away. But working in-house, my mantra is that these are living, breathing things. They have to last. They're built to last. It's actually really aligned with the ethos of our products, right? We don't want to build something that just lasts a few months. So when we build and design solutions for our business, I like to think about how do we operationally maintain it? How will it look in 6 months, in 12 months time? What type of people do we need to support it? And trying to get that automation and efficiency is so key for us, because if an order doesn't go through, there is literally another person on the other side who's like scrambling to kind of get it through. If something doesn't go right, I see the customer care consultant pick up the phone and talk to that customer. And then you get a real sense of ownership and accountability with everything that we release out there. We see, and it blows my mind too, thousands of orders come in, thousands of orders of people who are loving our brands and buying our brands, and hopefully are going to love the product when they receive it. But it's literally a one-to-one relationship. So there's definitely a deeper sense of ownership being internal, and a greater sense of pride with everything that we release out there, because it's sort of representing our work and our business. So we're all about our customers. We want them to love our product, wear it with pride, and feel good when they're in it. But we want them to experience the best service possible.
Brilliant. I love that idea that all the way from the actual the product mentality of we're building products that will last for a long period of time, where they're built to be worn, they're built to be used, and you're kind of taking that sort of product philosophy and actually bringing that into the tech side of the business as well, and having that sort of permeate through everything that you guys do is I really like that. It's a pretty cool way of sort of thinking about everything.
Well, if it breaks, Sam, I have to fix it. So if it breaks, then my team have to fix it. So we're all about building things that are rock solid, because it's all for everyone's benefit, really.
Yeah. No one wants to be waking up on the weekend with the problem. So within this So you've been there for, a period of time. Again, we're not talking about how long we've done things for, because it's important not to age ourselves. But you're working with APG. You've worked on WebSphere and then Salesforce. So those large sort of monolith products, which have their own capabilities and utilities, the things that they do really, really well. And then you've made the decision to jump to composable. So what were the problems you're looking to solve within your business that sort of composable was the solution for?
Well, it was a bit of a funny journey because we had originally, so Sportscraft was the first brand in Australia to actually go on demandware back in the day. And so, before they were acquired by Salesforce. So we actually had a very early implementation of Salesforce Commerce Cloud. And look, it's a great platform and it served us really well. I guess when we took a step back and had a look at it, we started this project, we started thinking about it just as sort of in early 2021. So that was the first year of COVID. We saw a great uptick in our online orders, and we wanted to make things more robust. Now, taking a step back, the solution that we were on had been there for many years, and it was built at a time where e-commerce played a very specific role within our business. But then fast forward to where we were at that time, we were servicing multiple channels, we were selling on different channels. There were all sorts of new digital marketing services out there. So taking a real step back and going, look, how do we manage ourselves across this environment? It required us to really kind of think from the ground up on how we were going to do it. And of course, the big players in the market, Shopify were out there and making waves. And so we looked at everything. We looked at other big platforms, and we assessed what we wanted to achieve and why we couldn't do it on our current stack. And ultimately, we found that not everything ticked all the boxes. I was admittedly at the beginning not too comfortable with the idea of composable commerce. It was a bit daunting because I guess it sort of meant that you'd have to take a lot of control over how you wanted to steer the solution. There were no defaults in a composable environment. You had to really decide what you want to do. But then as we went through the whole RFP process and we were like, oh, that doesn't meet our needs, or, that's going to not work for us in the long term, or whatever it might be, we were like, okay, well, it sounds like we've got some specific requirements that we need to meet. And I think the maturity in this space and just meeting, Fantastic at the time and the Commerce Tools guys and understanding how this whole network of market partners and platforms have developed really opened our eyes a little bit to the opportunities. And this space moves so quickly as well that we just wanted to be able to set ourselves up to be able to move with it if we needed to. The big platforms they're great, they're fantastic, but they kind of are a bit of a Swiss Army knife. They've got all the tools you could possibly want, but only in that sort of flavor. So we were just keen on building our own toolbox really, and finding the ones that met our specific needs. And
it's interesting because it's like there's some comfort in sometimes knowing that this is how this product does something, and so you can rely on that and you can say, all right, well, we can just lean into this. But then as a business, there's also that opportunity to go, well, the way it needs to work for our customers, and you guys have such a strong vision of who your customers are, your business, and how it operates, that being able to say, all right, well, we need it to do certain things and function in a certain way, and if we're going to do this project, which sounds like you guys do this project only once in a long period of time, and you stick to a platform, you need to kind of be on the furthest edge of it. You need to make sure that you're getting everything you need out of this platform. You don't want to be looking at something and 2 years later go, oh, actually, there's now a newer, different something else that we need to be building on to access that capability.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that the nature of these commercial contracts are in 3 to 5 year cycles, right? So you really only have so many, it's like the Olympics, right? You really only have so many opportunities to make the call. And, we were supportive, our exec team were very progressive and were open to exploring something that it's not necessarily on the bleeding edge of things. We were just a few steps back. We were like, we see the potential, we see the value, we see how it could work for us. And we know it's new and we know it's something that's a little unexplored, but we're happy to go down that exploration and do it. So our exec team and our board were incredibly supportive of the direction that we ended up recommending, and working very closely with the Overdose team to actually find a solution to kind of tick all our boxes, so to speak. And there was a lot of unpicking to do because we had been on our Demandware Salesforce Commerce Cloud solution for quite some time. We had invested so much in building it and getting all our requirements in there. So to be able to distill all of that and add more was quite a challenge for us, because we've got the 3 brands, 2 sites per brand. We're omni-channel, so we've got all the click and collect considerations as well. So there was quite a lot to get through in the program of work.
Yeah, and there's always so much business knowledge and business process that gets built up over a period of time on a product when you've been on it, and then you kind of you change that product to sort of suit your business, or you suit your business to meet that product, and then you have to unpick all of that and go, all right, well, how much of this is the right way we need to do things for our business, and how much of it is a process that we've developed over time to suit the needs of a product, and how do we actually start to look at things differently?
There was definitely that trap of not doing things the way we've always done them, and taking a cold hard look at things. Sure.
Without getting into too much detail about the overall architecture of your platform, because I know there's some of that sort of your secret sauce in a way, but you talked about the need for stability within what you were kind of trying to deliver. What about a composable solution gave you confidence that you'd be able to have that stability in platform and have that robustness probably behind the scenes rather than probably that front-facing consumer end?
Oh, that's a good question. It's a bit, I don't know, because I guess one of the things is when you are in the composable world, you have utter control over how all your platforms and services interact with one another. And with that transparency, you can see what's going on. There is a bit of a black box funniness going on with some of the monolithic platforms, and that's good and bad depending on who you are, really. But I think one of the things I would say is having absolute control over how all of our platform services, or how Algolia talks to commerce tools, and where Nosto plays, and how we get our data, our product data from Commerce Tree into commerce tools. Like all of that is we designed all of that, we built all of that, we know exactly how that works. And so in a way that kind of gives us assurance of we know what's going on. So if something did go wrong, it's also within our control to suss it out as well. Whereas sometimes, in the other world, something could go wrong and you may not actually have the visibility to dig any deeper. You're completely reliant on that platform partner to help you out there. So there's that to contend with. And I guess the other thing is, if it does break, it's kind of on you as well. There's a little bit of that to have to own and acknowledge. So it's a very different approach, I would say. Like there are more dependencies in the composable world, because we've got different services doing different things on our platform. So there's more things that need to be up, so to speak. But there is also no single point of failure either. Some services are obviously more critical than others, and that's the nature of things. But that's the balance, I suppose, to strike between sort of the two approaches that we could have taken.
Yeah, it sounds like it's not going to be right for everyone, right? Like it's definitely one of these things where you have to be able to know that there's a level of control and management on yourself that you have to do within your organization. But if you're willing to do it, then you create your own. You've got your own ability to manage things. You're not reliant on a partner in on a far off country and on the other side of the world sometimes to fix something, right? And that's like the reality of particularly being here in Australia. We've all had that problem, right? We've all had that problem where something goes wrong somewhere, and you call someone and they go, "Cool, I'll just wait for this person who's in our support team in X country to wake up and try and get there and support you."
Oh, look, I'll be honest, there's still a little bit of that happens. But I guess the difference is sort of kind of depends on what goes down.
Yeah.
And so
and you can isolate where that problem is, right? Which is the other
exactly.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. But on our critical platforms, you're always going to have a critical platform. There is always going to be something that serves your website. And if that goes down, then the whole thing does as well. But I think just having just a kind of distributed risk, I guess, as opposed to singular risk, there's benefits to that too. And yes, the reality is there is an overhead of sort of being across all the different providers of your solution as well. But I guess that's the whole thing about being on Composable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So like one of the big parts for you as part of the IT organization within APG Co is that ownership of the architecture, right? So going into the Composable, looking at it and going, all right, well, we've got to own the actual architecture. We need to understand how it all processes, where the ins and outs and everything are, so you can actually isolate issues. That's sort of one of the needs that you need to have internally within your business to sort of go down the Composable route. From a front-end experience point of view, what has the team seen that's sort of been different in the way that they run and operate from a day-to-day point of view that's been different from, how they worked on Salesforce previously, just Salesforce as, a monolith player rather than a composable environment? What's sort of been the biggest differences for them?
Well, we opted to go with Frontastic, which is Commerce Tools Front End, the new name, which I think there was a big emphasis during the RFP to find us a tool for our business users to better manage the website, the day-to-day. So mind you, there's a whole lot of new players out there who kind of provide that content management solution or that front-end management solution. So it was really important for us to find something that felt right. And we ended up choosing the Commerce Tool front-end platform because we found that there was a level of flexibility that it gave our business users. And that's actually the really important part. Our templates were aging in Salesforce Commerce Cloud. They're, we were getting less and less flexibility with what we could do with it. It required a lot of development to change it and to kind of restructure it. And we're kind of getting to a point where the way that we were managing sort of the look and feel of our website became quite onerous and quite limiting without investing a significant amount in development to actually shift it and move it all together. And like with any system that's been around for a little while, we had a lot of code on code built over many years. And it was getting more and more onerous to untangle it all and to kind of strip it all back. So I guess for us, we were kind of hitting that pointy end where do we make the investment to move off to something else, or do we make the investment to change our templates and rejuvenate them more, both of which were significant in effort and time. So for it's a lot to do with the tooling, I would say. And so because we've chosen to go with Commerce Tools front end, we invested quite a lot of time to building up the Tastics, if you are familiar with it, which are all the sort of little UI components there. That in itself was quite involved, but it kind of just gave our team some flexibility in just how they structured the site and how they built up their homepages and built up their pages. And we continue to work with the product team at Commerce Tools to sort of feedback on our experiences of how we're using it, just, so that we can, sneak out some of our requirements into their product roadmap. That's, full disclosure, but also at the same time, just help out build a better product, because at the end of the day, the people who are running our websites right now, they shouldn't have to be coders. They shouldn't have to be developers who know HTML and JavaScript and CSS. We should be able to create beautiful sites quite simply, but in kind of trying to achieve that, there's a lot of work that goes to it as well. So, apart from having completely fresh designs with our new website, it was also looking at, okay, what are the building blocks of that design and how do we kind of make it to allow for some flexibility moving forward. And then there's always going to be continual dev to tweak and tune. That's just part of running an e-commerce store, I would say.
Yeah. And then, those components and modules, giving you that flexibility of being able to, change a homepage or change a content page around just by purely going, all right, well, here are these Tastics or components that we can move around with different sliders and different ways of showing products. So it gives you that flexibility. How have you, when going through this process, sort of, you've got 3 brands that have a different personality about them. There's always that, tendency of, there's the speed and efficiency of replicating the same experience versus trying to represent a brand and give it its own voice. What has been the balance there for you guys throughout the build experience? And now how do you develop and manage it from an ongoing level?
It is definitely an ongoing challenge because we have the 3 brands. It's obviously more efficient to build something for all 3. But as to your point, each of our brands have their own unique style and unique offering. So we want to kind of maintain the individualism of each brand as well. Being a fashion apparel retailer, a lot of it is heavily image based as well. So I think so long as we are able to kind of provide some universal options around how we present our rich assets, then we kind of still are able to maintain each brand's unique sense of self. But at the same time, it works in our favor too, because our smaller brands can sometimes get features that may not necessarily be developed for that size brand, and so it's a bit of tit for tat. My team generally try to rationalize all of our requirements between our brands to try to find the most effective way for us to roll that out. But we do find that so long as we can kind of keep the rich assets, like get the flexibility there, then each brand can maintain their sense of style. Look, we've only also been live for less than a year as well. So each of the brands are sort of familiarizing themselves with the sites and trying to go, okay, now where to from here?
Yeah. They're probably all trying to figure out how they can break it as well.
Probably as well. Although, we work pretty well with our brands, so hopefully we guide them down a good, healthy path. But it's a bit of negotiation and just making sure that we kind of don't end up, and again, this is the long-term view, with 3 very different sites. And I don't say that from a look and feel perspective, but underneath the mechanics of it, because that adds that operational overhead and that adds, that sort of that extra effort there. So it's I think at the moment we are all on the same playing field, and then there's the look and feel, which is obviously different between our brands. And with those components, those Tastic and Frontastic, it's up to each of the brands to decide how they want to construct and put together their home pages and their layouts of each individual page, because that's the whole point of why we went with Frontastic, to allow them to do that. But then being able to kind of maintain it on an even base as well, which is also a key priority for us.
Yeah, it's that real interesting balance of, really going that 80-20 rule of, they all sell clothes at the end of the day. So there's so much of what they do that's going to be the same. Commerce a lot of the time is, there are certain givens that have to be there. But then it's also when you're selling fashion apparel, it means that you're even more in that alignment across those brands. Yes. But then trying to find that interesting balance of giving people individual flexibility, individual control to represent their brand, but then also allow for functionality to be universal across those brands and go, all right, well, here's a great component. Why would this just be a JAG component? This makes sense that, hey, Sportscraft could use this exact same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Customers as well.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of that going on, and it actually, overall, it works in every brand's favor as well, to kind of have sort of something a little bit outside their sphere to consider in their individual offering to their customers. But yeah, it's a constant sort of iteration as well, I find. But you're right, we do sell clothes, and sort of from a data perspective, the data model is the same underneath. So that actually makes it a lot easier for us to kind of keep them all on the same. But if we sold groceries on one and footwear on the other, then things start to look vastly different.
Yeah, and that customer experience in the end. Just a question coming in. So with composable adoption, what sort of mindset changes have you seen with those workings at the coalface with each brand? So those mindset changes of a composable environment, whereas sort of like the different brands had to think about things differently.
I wouldn't say as such for our brand teams, but for our online team, our wonderful online team who manage our sites, I think one of the challenges was just kind of maintaining several logins to several different platforms just to do kind of the end-to-end. There is a sort of a deeper understanding of how those services actually are implemented in our solution. And that's just the reality of it, because you've taken the pieces out, and people need to understand how those pieces fit together. So there is that challenge, which I think was probably the biggest shift for us. So it's kind of like, I've got to upload my images into Cloudinary, and I've got to wait for, and then I've got to pull that into my PIM, and I've got to see that all, and then I've got to push that into here, and so there's definitely that, which I suppose in our old way of doing things, or in our previous solution, there was a lot less of that, right? Because the search was all in one, the merchandising was all in one, the images were loaded into the same platform that you do your merchandising in, so it's all neat. So for the folks at APG who look after our sites, there was a bit of finding your bearings a little bit. Okay, it's like, okay, so I need to do my sort rules, I need to do my merchandising, that's Nosto. But I want to change my search rules. Okay, that's Algolia.
Becomes a level of like architectural understanding from just a merchandise person that they probably never really had to think about before.
It is, but at the same time, there's also a nice segregation as well. So, we're on the cusp of implementing a new CMS, and we're going to have several business users who will be there from the marketing team, but they will only need to care about the CMS, and that's it. They don't have to care about any of the other bits and bobs on the site. They can just load their content in there and create the articles, and that will just come through. So in a way, there's an advantage to it, because if you've got people with very specific roles or do very specific things on the whole e-com stack, then you're able to kind of discreetly just kind of go, yep, that's all you need to worry about. You don't need to worry about any of the other bits and bobs. So pros and cons as well. But that was probably the shift for us, is just understanding essentially the flow of data between our systems, how to get them from A to B to C. And a little bit of that comes into play when you're troubleshooting as well. So I put something in here and I can't see it over here, so I've got to kind of work out what's happened there. And but at least we can work it out, whereas sometimes in our old solution it's kind of like it just didn't work. Why? And that's a whole different challenge in itself.
I mean, those learnings happen, and that whole sort of process change happens no matter what sort of platform you move into. As long as you're on a new platform, you've got to teach everyone to do things differently again, because while again, 80-20, 80% of like most content management solutions or e-commerce solutions are the same in the same sort of like functions and attributes that you need to deal with. The actual way you do it is always going to be slightly different. That interestingly, the idea of the like the marketing people just having access to content, and then those people in the online teams who have to manage across different platforms and actually manage passwords across different platforms. How do you manage that from there's a security advantage to actually having, marketing people who just have access to a marketing platform which doesn't have access to customers and doesn't have access to orders, and you're kind of reducing the people who have access to certain sort of like content information. But then, from an IT problem point of view of like going, I can just imagine the worst case scenario. You walk over to someone's computer and they have 8 different Post-it notes stuck up against their computers with different passwords to log in.
That's naughty. Don't do it, guys. Burn the Post-it notes.
I'm not advocating for that. I'm curious about how you get people out of that mindset and into a different one, and what that actually looks like.
Look, I'll be honest with you, we haven't quite solved it in an elegant way. If we're up to my team, it'd be, can we get a single sign-on into Active Directory for everything? Pretty please. At the same time, we're also constrained by what's available on each platform as well, and what they offer in terms of authentication. So we haven't quite cracked that nugget yet. But there's a lot of passwords being stored in browsers at the moment. I'm not sure if I should say that, but that's how people, I think that's how everyone manages their life at the moment, because I certainly don't remember all of my passwords either.
I have a personal password manager, and we have a password management system at Overdose as well. That'd be my recommendation for most people out there. Implement a password management solution. Use strong passwords that are recommended by those plugins, rather than trying to remember something or create a phrase, or God forbid someone having something horrible out there. Because when you do have multiple different things that you need to log into, from our point of view, across all of our clients, we need a way of logging it in. We don't want people having the same password across multiple different things, same usernames across multiple different things. We use these password management solutions so that we can access the information we need without having to remember an individual password.
Yeah, and look, it's actually just from an IT operations perspective, with all the subscription services out there, it's hard to stay on top of, because you just kind of never know when someone will just sign up for some random service out there in the business. So it's one of our ongoing challenges to kind of keep that all under control and sort of with the right level of governance that doesn't hinder people either, because sometimes if you crack down too hard as well, it just doesn't become practical for people to use. But definitely still an ongoing, haven't solved that one yet.
I mean, the rogue software thing is always an interesting one. You might have someone implement Monday.com in your business. I joke.
I know, she's out of control. No, we've embraced Monday.
Monday, and we have to call it Monday.com, because last thing we want is people to complaining about Mondays again.
Yep. There's a lot of actually funny misunderstandings when you don't say Monday.com.
So a question coming in from LinkedIn: can you talk about your customer experience and if you feel it's been improved with your composable stack?
Well, I would say having the fresh site in general kind of improved our customer experience. Like, it really, the whole design that that Ryan and the team at Overdose came and put together for us was the first. And in terms of the customer experience, like, because I'm in the technology space, I'd say like the robustness of our system has really played a big part in improving that customer experience. And I talk about the really geeky stuff because how we manage our orders and our order information, our customer information, is so seamless now. And I don't mean to toot my own horn, because maybe I had a part to play in that, but it just meant that customers who are interacting and dealing with us, everything works really well. And they place an order, it's in our ERP system within less than 10 minutes. It's so when they call our customer cares team, it's all there. And sometimes the best customer experience is the one that doesn't make any noise, right? So in my line of work and what I look after, no news is good news. So I would say that's played a really big part there as well. But in terms of just the composable kind of element of it, I think just having access to the latest tools and the best of breed tools in the marketplaces, that's kind of what we were after. We wanted to be able to merchandising is so important for us. We are a fashion company, but being able to have access to those tools and have that integrated into our stack was a huge game changer for us. And it's taken some time for us to tweak through and make sure that the implementation was right. But now that we have that at our fingertips, like, that's what's going to drive the shopping experience for our customers on our site. And then just being able to create beautiful home pages, and it's a lot about it being beautiful because we are in fashion, and really kind of bringing our customers into that brand experience is another element of the customer experience that we're really, really proud of as well. So we're very seasonal. We have different campaign images, so just being able to keep that fresh and doing it easily as well is a big part of it. But sort of in my sphere of things, it's all the stuff that goes unnoticed, because it's a little bit like oxygen. If it all goes well, no one cares. And so I think that's something that I like my team spend a lot of their time and effort to make sure that nothing goes wrong. So for our customers, we want them to have a really smooth experience when they place that order on our site.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly explained in that, you guys are doing your job well when people forget that you're there and you're doing all this hard work in the background, right? So like the duck feet under the water, paddling away while the duck on top still looks smooth and calm.
We're just gliding.
Yeah. From Tash, have you found the data accessibility transparency has increased since moving to Composable?
I'd say yes, because of what I mentioned earlier. It's because we've designed it a specific way. So we just have that full end-to-end control of how we pass data from A to B to C. And there was a lot of groundwork that my team had put in place before we actually rebuilt the site too. So in terms of how we manage our customers' information as well, there's a lot of foundational work that we did with our partner at Omnio to really get a good handle on that, so that when we were ready to do this next part with our e-com stack, it kind of tied in really nicely. I'm hoping I'm answering the question here, but yeah, in terms of transparency, it's mainly because we designed it, so we know exactly what's going on underneath the hood. And by we, I meant APG and Overdose as well. So I don't want the guys to be like, excuse me. So I think that plays a big part of it. And I find it actually quite refreshing coming from the sort of the world that we had been in, where some parts were just unknown. So yeah, I think that's been a real big advantage.
I think it's a really important answer, because it's not, the platform doesn't solve the problem, right? You actually have to do the work to transform your data, to clean your data, to get your data into a position where you've got everything you need and you've got rid of everything you don't need. And then you can actually, then when you implement it on a new platform, then you're in the right position,
Yeah. So one of the things that we used this as an opportunity to really improve in terms of that data transparency is the way that we handle our catalog data, our catalog pricing and inventory data, because we operate on different marketplaces. We have Google Shopping ads, we have Facebook ads, and all that requires squeaky clean information in order for us to get the biggest bang for buck. But there's also a lot of potential for duplicating. So when we looked at this whole solution, we were like, how do we, enriching is something that we have to do. We have to enrich our data, because our data comes from, our product teams, and that's all made for manufacturing and sourcing. So we've got to take that sort of baseline data and enrich it so that, Google can find it and Google can understand it, or that it makes sense, or that we can have the right search filters on the website. So one of the things that we did do is kind of centralize all that into a PIM, our commerce 3 PIM, and just create a process that's hopefully as less onerous as possible for our online and our copywriters, where they can just do things once, and because it's all nice, clean and neat, we can reuse that again and again and again. So if we're pushing a catalog feed to Google, or we're pushing a catalog feed to Facebook, or we're just pushing that to the Iconic, because we sell on the Iconic, and it's just kind of minimizing the amount of handling on that data as well, because we've kind of structured it right, and we've created a process where you can just do everything at the front, and then we leverage it again and again and again. I mean, there's no getting out of it. We have to create data somehow. But who knows? AI is on its way. So, but it's just one of those things where we have a really great copywriter who sits there and makes sure that all the product titles are looking correct, and that all the descriptions are looking right, and all the care instructions are looking right, and that the pants are sitting in the pants category, and all of those sort of really kind of important things, because if you don't do that, then people can't find your product, or we can't merchandise the product, or we can't put the product where it needs to go. So all of that was a big consideration, just because we know that an incredible amount of time and energy goes into that from our teams, and they do such a great job of it, and they're really diligent. We just want to make sure that when they do it, it stays there, and we can use it again and again and again, all the way down to any endpoint that we need to pass that information to.
Yeah, I think people underestimate how much duplication is going on in their own business with actually managing data out to different channels, and then the effort involved in sort of thinking about it, understanding all of the different data models that need to exist across your Iconics, your Facebooks, your Google Shopping, and on your own websites, and any other partners you're working with as well. And how much of that is consistent, how much of that is unique, how much of that is a concatenation of different attributes that you would have on your own website that need to be represented in a very different way. But doing all that work and sitting down and working through it and then putting together a really clean set of attributes that people need to manage, and just making sure that it's simple and reusable. And as you said, done once, it's critical. And from a brand point of view, like making sure that that decision about how you represent that brand is done by the right person for that product, rather than someone going, oh, I'm just going to bastardize this because I need to send something out to Amazon. You know, it's a critical part of it. You mentioned AI before, and you know, we can't not talk about AI because it's, you know, the topic that everyone talks about. Have you thought about how AI might change the way you run processes and how you structure things, and how it might change, you know, your business overall, or even, you know, the parts of the business that you look after and you control?
I think from an e-com perspective, like I said before, like it's heavily data driven, and it's all about the metadata on your product to sort of cut through in your advertising and cut through and sort of bring your product in front of people who are interested in it. I reckon one of those sort of, I think the easiest things that I can think of where there's such a natural fit is just enriching our product information, right? So, you know, this is one of our knits, and it's a knit, and it's got stripes, and it's a round neck, and it's a long sleeve, and it's made of merino wool, or it's, you know, all of that information has to come from somewhere. Right now, it's coming from someone's head who actually looks at the product and it starts typing it all in. And then we're saying, you know, it's not free text, use this drop down. And, you know, it's quite a laborious task. And then we have hundreds of products as well. So I definitely see the opportunity there for, you know, for us to be able to run some of our product images through, you know, a magical AI bot, and it goes, pumps out all this information in a nice, clean, structured way. And then we're able to, you know, use that to power really great search facets on our website. If someone's searching for, you know, something cozy to wear that's sort of got a pattern but not too many patterns, and they can do that as well. So I definitely see it as a use case, and I feel that it probably already exists. I've seen a few iterations and a few different services to do that, but I think those would be the types of tasks that AI could really, really help us expedite some of that enrichment process. Because it's so important, but it's not the funnest thing to do either. Like, it's fun to do on one, but then when you're on your 200 product, you're a bit over it. So, you know, that data is so important for us to cut through on all those marketplaces and all those digital advertising services, and even just on our own website. To your point before, like if you're searching for something very specific, that you want a V-neck T-shirt in a sort of not bold color or whatever that might be, that you'll be able to find what you're looking for. So I feel that that's definitely, you know, just around the corner, if not already. Probably someone's probably already using it.
Yeah, and there's kind of advantages and disadvantages, right? Because it might come up with a way of describing a product that actually is usable for your customers that you wouldn't think about in-house about how you describe that product. And if it helps those people purchase what they're looking for, then that's absolutely golden. But then the reverse of that is you don't want to be generic in the way you do things, because you need to represent that brand in a very particular way. So there's always going to be, you know, some of this might be around, you know, how you manage things from a prompt engineering point of view, but, you know, actually how you describe your product and the copy that you put around the actual product itself, how the actual brand is represented in photography as well. Like, you know, we could get to a point where someone could, you know, a designer could like type in, this is the kind of product I want to make, and render an image for it, but that wouldn't actually be shot in the way that actually represents your brand in a particular way, and cut in a certain way that actually represents your brand and consistency of shape as well. So there's always, for me, it's like we're a mile away from you know, AI completely taking over, but there's definitely some more of those manual, laborious tasks that can really help.
Yeah. And it's about sort of, you know, getting to that 80%, and maybe the 20% is where you sort of finish it off and make sure it's all on brand and have the right tone. But it's, you know, in fashion, and there is a creative element to it. There is that art element to it of presenting, you know, our products the way that our designers have envisioned it from the get-go. And so I can't, you know, you can't put technology on that, I don't think. And so some of the things that our product designers come up with, they're amazing. And it's just from their imaginations and from their inspirations that they pull those things together. So it's there's always going to be a human element to it, but I can definitely see some shortcuts with AI just to kind of get us, away a lot of the way there, and then with someone kind of finessing it after it's done something. But that's just my 2 cents on AI. Because in my mind, AI is like Terminator, so it's just sort of.
So you're aging yourself again. We're doing that thing where you've aged yourself again. It's problematic.
Yeah.
No, you do read a lot about creative people using AI to sort of come up with concepts and designs, and it's something that could aid that brand design team. But there's a science sort of in design of actually, particularly in product design for a company like APG, of understanding, all right, well, we need to change things, we need to move things on. Where is the industry going? Where do we sort of make ourselves different? But then, who is our customer? And actually making something that's accessible and usable and meets that customer's need as well, which is a whole other level that, we're like I said, we're probably miles away from. But it's very exciting to think about where we could be in even a year from now.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of scary times.
All right, I'll take a complete move away from AI now. Earlier in our conversation, I sort of mentally noted it because I thought it was an interesting way of thinking about things. You kind of described, these platform purchases and these platform sort of acquisitions and rebuilds as sort of like almost like the Olympics, right? It only happens every 3 to 5 years. That's just by the nature of contracts and things. And it kind of means that, from a lot of people's experience in this industry, they probably only do 1 or 2 of these projects in their entire lives, right? So having, from your background as an IT consultant, actually having to implement these for different customers, and then coming into APG and doing this large transformation from one platform to a modern composable stack, what are the learnings about that people need to sort of have in their head going into these large projects? What are the things that that you don't think about from day one that you wish you'd thought about on day 120 down the line? What are those learnings you could pass on to people? Or what would you tell Carina of beginning of this project?
Well, I mean, it's a good question, because there's a lot of things that we knew coming in, right? It's kind of like climbing our Mount Everest. It's going to be hard and it's going to be tough, but it's not until you're sort of climbing that you're like, wow, it's actually quite hard. So it's sort of, I think, one of the realities of it, and I cannot kind of credit them enough, is that our online team have their day jobs. We're still trading, right? We're keeping the lights on, and we're changing light bulbs, and we're changing the ceiling at the same time, and keeping everything illuminated. And that's the hard reality of cutting over. That's one thing that from a consultancy background or agency background that you don't really see, because you're just focused on the new stuff. And the new stuff is fun and exciting. But our team, our online guys, they were still trading the sites. They still had budgets to hit. They still had targets. We were still running campaigns, and they were in workshops, testing the site, making sure it was ready, preparing content on the new site. And for a period of time, as we were approaching that cutover, they were literally managing 2 sites. So I can't stress enough like what an amazing effort that they did, because if it wasn't for that, we would never have made it to the other side. And so there's that too, just the cold hard reality of cutting over, because you're never going to come in clean, right? You still got to keep doing what you're doing. So that's something that everyone needs to kind of really, really acknowledge. And even at that point when you're setting up the project, from my experience, I was like, this is a full-time project. Everyone in the business has their actual day jobs, right? Everyone's there. No one is exclusively for the project. But then we said, on a project of this size, we do need people who are exclusive for the project. So we brought in a fantastic project manager, hi Superior if you're out there, who came and helped us just, keeping everything on track, right? And there are so many parts to the puzzle, because there's the online team with the website, there's our customer care team who need to help the customers transition to the new site as well. There's our retail team who need to be involved. They need to be in the know because they're also at the coalface with our customers. So there's a lot of that internal communication and operation as well. And, you know, our finance friends as well, we changed payment gateways. They needed to be across that. They needed to know what was happening, how the transactions would look, where the money would go when it came through. So there's so many parts to the puzzle when you're changing such a significant portion of the business. So your communication being absolute key. I think that's the one thing we all admitted we could have done better within our own business and keeping everyone on board with the project. And you know, our project ran for more than a year, so it's actually keeping that momentum is kind of challenging as well. So and then we had to cut over each brand at separate times. So you're just at one point when we cut over the first brand, SABA, it was about 2 months before we cut over to JAG and had everything over. But those 2 months it was just like having two jobs because you had two worlds that you were straddling. So that was quite tough and challenging for all of our team who were involved in the project at that time. So that's one of the realities. And we knew that upfront. Like we go, oh yeah, it's gonna be super hard, but we'll do it. We're gonna do it anyway. And we did, with amazing support from the Overdose team and all of our platform partners during that time. But it was, you know, the actual doing of the do, and then this was in the backdrop of COVID and a very, you know, terrible war going on and all sorts of things. Like we were just, so it was definitely a big mountain to climb. But once we got over there, it's sort of like, yes, we made it. And it's, you know, it's almost like we don't even remember. But I would say anyone
pain for next time. And you go, I know it's going to be hard, but
but I think it's just you know, if you want to change something, this is the very essence of change management. If you want to change something, you have to go through that change. So it's, you know, we could have not done it and we would have been exactly where we were before, and then still having all of the limitations where we had before. So I'd definitely say resourcing, comms are very real things to prepare for anyone embarking any type of transformation project like this.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, Carina. This has been absolutely fantastic and fascinating. You know, I think you've given some people some real insight into what it's like actually, you know, building a composable site and actually running it and operating it from a day-to-day level as well, from an IT point of view. And I think it's such a hot topic of conversation for so many people out there. And I think very few people in our industry have actually gone through it and have actually, you know, come out the other end and can talk about it. So we really appreciate your time. We really appreciate your partnership throughout the entire build. It's been, you've been a fantastic person to work with, and your experience and your control and your measured approach has been appreciated all the way through as well.
Oh, thank you so much, Sam, and to the Overdose team. Yeah, who we still talk to every day, by the way. So that's a good thing. We felt a bit bittersweet when we were wrapping up our daily whips. We still chat to each other, so it's great. It's been a very natural extension of our business.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today on 132 episode of Overdose and Chill. Thank you for all the questions and comments, and thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your days.